The debate over how to handle the influx of migrants at the southern border, is only intensifying and furthering political divides on the issue. I want to bring in on our panel tonight two Texans who have two different perspectives on what's going on. Orlando Sanchez, he's the founder of Texas Latino Conservatives and the former treasurer of Harris County, Texas, and former HUD Secretary Julian Castro. He also served as the mayor of San Antonio and is a current NBC News contributor. I'd like to thank both of you for joining our show. Orlando, I want to start with you. What is your take on what Ron DeSantis did, sending those Venezuelan migrants from Texas and flying them over to Martha's Vineyard?
I'm assuming the governor of Florida is following in the steps of Governor Greg Abbott here in Texas. We have absorbed the influx of over 200,000 uninspected, undocumented aliens, and property taxpayers in Texas, as you may know, fund every aspect of government, from public schools to public health to social services to our law enforcement. And the taxpayers of Texas are fed up, the property taxpayers are fed up of funding what the federal government should be handling.
Orlando, I want to ask you a specific question, and you can fact check me if I'm wrong. You were a Cuban refugee?
I was a refugee in 1962 from Havana, Cuba, came from Venezuela through the port of Miami.
So, Orlando, I have a question for you. Then you understand the immigrant experience, but more importantly, the refugee experience. These were Venezuelan refugees. They had no idea where they were going. And then the people in Martha's Vineyard had no idea they were coming. So my question to you is was this a good policy, or do you think the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, was using human beings, specifically families, even children, as a political tool to score points, to essentially, quote unquote, dunk on the libs?
Well, I think, as the governor said, and I'm not living in Florida, so I can't speak for the governor, but I'm assuming that, like Texas, the taxpayers of Florida are absorbing the burden of the failures of our immigration policies. And states like Florida, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona are fed up. We just can't afford it. We don't get the help from the federal government, and our local property taxpayers can no longer afford it.
But Orlando, do you think taking 50 people and dropping them off in an area that wasn't ready to house them is good policy?
Well, perhaps they should have better communication, and the governor perhaps should have called ahead of time. But as we say in Texas, because Greg Abbott has sent 11,000 up north, we can no longer afford to pick up the tab.
Julian, I want to start with you. There is a problem at the border. That is clear. The Biden administration clearly does not have it under control. And this has happened in part. I want to ask you, when you see what happened today and these governors in Texas and obviously Florida shipping out migrants all over the states, it is true that those border communities, and I know you know this, are overwhelmed.
Well, it's certainly true that border communities along the Texas border and other border states often bear the greatest share of responsibility and burden. I mean, there's no question about that. The question is, how do you address this in both an effective and a humane way? And the problem here is that this is pure cruelty and simply a political stunt 2 months before the November midterms, and it's neither effective nor humane. Just think for a second, Tom, that these are folks seeking asylum who are coming from Venezuela, who are fleeing the dictatorial Maduro regime. This is no different from Venezuelans who have come in the past, from Cubans who are now Cuban Americans, who have made a great life here, have been a wonderful community in the United States, who fled the Castro regime 2 generations ago. And instead of trying to do what we can, as a country to make sure that they're stable and they're able to survive well until their asylum request is held, their hearing is held. They are duped. They're lied to about where they're going. They're misled completely for political purposes. Instead of doing that and wasting taxpayer dollars doing it, Governor Abbott, Governor Ducey, and Governor DeSantis instead should encourage their senators like Senator Rubio, Senator Rick Scott, Senator Cornyn, Senator Cruz to support the request that President Biden made for record levels of funding for the Department of Homeland Security so that this problem can actually be addressed in an effective way.
Yeah, but Republicans will point out that Democratic presidents, including President Biden, have bussed migrants out of border towns before. What's different with what the Republican governors are doing?
Well, what's different is that they're not duping people. They're not lying to people about what they're doing. That's completely different, Tom. It also goes against the narrative, the story that these folks are trying to say, that only certain communities bear the entire burden of housing these migrants. That's not true. There's actually a network of places around the country that end up hosting families and children and others who are asylum seekers and undocumented immigrants. So it has never been the case that solely a few border states have responsibility for that. Again, let's look at what's been effective, what the Biden administration has done. It's invested record levels in Department of Homeland Security. It's beefed up border technology. It's gone after human traffickers. It's struck up a partnership with Mexico and Guatemala to do joint border patrolling. So the Biden administration is actually engaged in trying to solve this problem.
Julian, to be fair, and we heard it in Kerry's story. We heard it in Kerry's report there. We're still seeing record numbers at the border. So they may be trying to fix the problem, but clearly it has not worked. Orlando, I want to go back to you real quick. What is a solution here? What's a solution that is both humane, but that Democrats and Republicans can both agree on, that can maybe take some of the burden off those border states and border cities?
Well, first of all, with all due respect to the secretary, let me tell you who's getting duped to the taxpayers of Texas when Kamala Harris says that the border is under control. It's not. And we continue to bear the burden. If all of the undocumented aliens that have come into the country were made up a state, it would be the 17th largest state in America. We cannot sustain that. The answer, of course, Tom, is for Congress to do its job. And the secretary is correct. Both the House and the Senate need to work to resolve this issue. These southern states, our property taxpayers, are getting hammered. And the people getting duped, unfortunately, are the taxpayers of America. The United States, because of its policies and its failures to enforce immigration laws and to dedicate resources, unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say this, are acting as a co-conspirator in the importation of cheap labor in this country. And that's got to end.
Orlando Sanchez, Julian Castro, I thank you for your time. Thanks for coming on Top Story tonight.